In this section, we are going to go through review questions on Module 1. Module 1 was all about managing identity and access. Let's look at the first question. Your organization is considering Azure multi-factor authentication and your manager asks about secondary verification methods. Which of the following is not a valid option? You just need to select one answer. Is it text message with automated code? That is a valid option. Even the push notification to your phone is a valid option. You can use Azure Authentication app with OAuth verification code as well. Even the automated phone call is a valid option. So the one which is not a valid option and the correct answer for this question is emailed link to verification website. This is not a validation method used by Azure multi-factor authentication. Let's look at question number 2. Your organization has implemented Azure multi-factor authentication and you need to provide a status report by user account. Which of the following is not a valid multi-factor authentication status? You need to select one. So disabled, enabled, and enforced are all our valid option. So the one which is not a valid option is required. MFA has 3 user states: enabled, enforced, and disabled. Let's look at question number 3. You are configuring Azure multi-factor authentication. You can configure all the following options except one. Which one is that? We need to select one answer. So the correct answer is configure IP addresses outside the company internet that should be blocked. Trusted IP is a feature of allowed federated users or IP address range to bypass two-step authentication. The trusted IP's bypass works only from inside of the company intranet. Azure Conditional Access provide additional options if needed. Let's look at question number 4. You are assigning Azure AD roles. Which role will allow the user to manage all the groups in a tenant and would be able to assign other admin roles as well? You just need to select one answer. So it is definitely not user administrator or security administrator or password administrator. The correct answer is global administrator. Only the global administrator can manage group across tenant and assign other administrator roles. Let's look at question number 5. You are creating an Azure AD security group. All the following are the ways you can assign group membership except one. Which one is that? You can assign a group membership by using assigned, dynamic device, and dynamic user. But you won't be able to assign using Office 365 user. When you create an Azure AD group, you can select assigned, dynamic device, or dynamic user. Assigned let you add members directly to the group, and dynamic device uses rules to automatically add and remove devices. Let's look at question number 6. Your compliance auditors want to ensure as employees change jobs or leave the company that their privileges are also changed or revoked. They are especially concerned about the administrator group. To address their concerns, you implement which of the following? It is definitely not management group or just-in-time access or Azure time-based policies. The correct answer is access reviews. Access reviews enable organizations to effectively manage group membership, access to enterprise applications, and role assignments. Users' access can be reviewed on a regular basis to make sure only the right people have continued access. Let's look at question number 7. Identity Protection has reported that a user's credentials has been leaked. According to policy, the user's password must be reset. Which Azure AD role can reset the password? You just need to select one. So the correct answer is Global Administrator. To use identity protection, a user must be on one of these roles. Each role has different privileges, but only Global Administrator can reset a user's password. Let's look at question number 8. Identity protection identifies risk in following classification except what? You just need to select one answer. So the correct answer is unregistered device. Valid identity protection risk include all choices except unregistered device. Other risk classifications are malware linked IP address leak credentials, and Azure AD threat intelligence. Let's look at the next question. You have implemented identity protection and are reviewing the risky users report. For each reported event, you can choose any of the following actions except what? You can use block user from signing in, and you can confirm user compromises as well. Along with, you can dismiss user risk. The only option which doesn't fit here is delete the risk event. When reviewing risk events, you should evaluate each risk and then take action to block the user, confirm the compromise, dismiss the risk, reset the user password, or investigate further using Azure Advanced Threat Protection. Let's look at question number 10. Conditional access policies can help with all the following except which one? Conditional access can help you with block or grant access from specific location. It can be used to require multi-factor authentication and require to use trusted location as well. The one which doesn't fit in here is designate privileged user accounts. Conditional access policies at their simplest are if-then statements. If a user wants to access a resource, then they must complete an action. Let's look at question number 11. Which licensing plans support identity protection? So the correct answer is Azure Active Directory P2. Identity protection helps you configure risk-based conditional access for your application to protect them from identity-based risks. Okay, let's look at question number 12. You hire a new administrator and you create a new Azure AD user account for them. The new hire must be able to read-write resource deployment they are responsible for, and they must be able to read Azure AD access permissions as well. They should not be able to view Azure subscription information. So what should you do? You just need to select one answer. So the correct answer is assign the user the contributor role at the resource group level. This will give the new hire the least privileges necessary for the role. Let's look at question number 13. Which of the following would be a good example of when to use resource lock? The correct answer is an express route circuit with connectivity back to your on-premises network. Resource locks prevent other users in your organization from accidentally deleting or modifying critical resources. And express route is a critical resource. You have 3 virtual machines, VM1, VM2, and VM3 in a resource group. The help desk hires a new employee, and the new employee must be able to modify the settings on VM3, but not on VM1 and VM2. Your solution must minimize administrative overhead. What should you do? You just need to select one answer. The correct answer is assign the user to the contributor role on VM3. This means the user will not have the access to VM1 and VM2. By assigning the contributor role to the current resource group is incorrect, as it would allow the new hire to change the settings on VM1 and VM2 and therefore would meet the requirements. Let's look at question number 15. You need to target policies and review spend budget across several subscriptions you manage. What should you create for the subscriptions? The correct answer is management group. Management groups can be used to organize and manage subscriptions. Let's look at question number 16. Your manager asks you to explain how Azure user resource groups. You can provide all the following information except what? You basically can read out the statement and figure out which one is not correct. So the correct answer is resource group can be nested. Even though it's the correct answer for this, it's actually a wrong statement. All other options are the features of resource group. Let's look at question number 17. You wish to enable Azure AD PIM for your directory. What Azure AD role do you need to enable privileged identity management? Select one. So the correct answer is global admin or global administrator. Global admin role has the permission to enable privileged identity management. Your company has implemented Azure AD PIM. You need to ensure a new hires request elevation before they make any changes in Azure. What should you do? You just need to select one. The correct answer is assign the new hire the eligible role membership type. When someone is eligible for role membership, they must request activation before they can use the role. Azure AD PIM is used to manage which two of the following? The correct answers are Azure AD roles and Azure AD resource roles. Let's look at question number 20. Your organization has enabled Azure AD PIM. The senior IT manager does not want to perform any action to use a role. What should you do? Select one. The correct answer is make the manager permanent active in the role. This type of role assignment doesn't require a user to perform any action to use the role. Let's look at question number 21. Your IT help desk want to reduce password reset support tickets. You suggest having users sign in to both on-premises and cloud-based application using the same password. Your organization does not plan on using Azure AD identity protection. So which feature would be easiest to implement given the requirement? So the correct answer is pass-through authentication. Pass-through authentication, or PTA, allows your users to sign into both on-premises and cloud-based application by using same passwords. Let's look at question number 22. Which tool can you use to synchronize Azure AD password with on-premises Active Directory? The correct answer is Azure AD Connect. Azure AD Connect Sync is a main component of Azure AD Connect. It takes care of all the operations that are related to synchronize identity data between your on-premises environment and Azure AD. Let's look at question number 23. Azure AD does not use which of the following security protocols? The one protocol in the list which is not used by Azure AD is Kerberos, because Azure AD is HTTP or HTTPS based. It does not use Kerberos authentication. Instead, it uses HTTP and HTTPS protocol such as SAML, WS Federation, and OpenID Connect for authentication and OAuth for authorization. Let's look at the last question. Which of the following is not a passwordless authentication option that integrates with Azure Active Directory? You just need to select one answer. The correct answer is multi-factor authentication. MFA is a great way to secure your organization, but users often get frustrated with additional security layer on top of having to remember their passwords. In this section, we are going to go through questions on implementing platform protection. This is module 2. Let's look at the first question. Which of the following two features of Azure networking provide the ability to redirect all internet traffic back to your company's on-premises servers for packet inspection? You need to select two. So the correct answer is user-defined routes and forced tunneling. You can use forced tunneling to redirect internet-bound traffic back to your company's on-premises infrastructure. Forced tunneling is commonly used in scenarios where organizations want to implement packet inspection or corporate audits. Forced tunneling in Azure is configured via Virtual Network User-Defined Routes, or UDR. Let's look at question number 2. You are configuring Azure Firewall. You need to allow Windows Update network traffic through the firewall. Which of the following should you use? You just need to choose one answer. So it is definitely not network rules or NAT rules or destination inbound rules. The correct answer is application rules. Application rule defines fully qualified domain names or FQDNs that can be accessed from a subnet. That would be appropriate to allow Windows Update network traffic. Let's look at question number 3. You would like to limit outbound internet traffic from a subnet. Which product should you install and configure? So the correct answer is Azure Firewall. Azure Firewall will let you limit the outbound IP address and port that can be accessed. You can define network rule that defines source address, protocol, destination port, and destination address. Let's look at question number 4. Your organization has a web application and is concerned about attacks that flood the network layer with a substantial amount of seemingly legitimate traffic. What should you do? The correct answer is create a DDoS policy. creating a DDoS policy to provide defense against the exhaustion resources. This exhaustion could make an application unavailable to legitimate users, for example. Let's have a look at question number 5. You are deploying the Azure Application Gateway and want to ensure incoming requests are checked for common security threats like cross-site scripting and crawlers. To address your concerns, what should you do? The correct answer is install the Web Application Firewall. The Web Application Firewall, or WAF, is an optional component that handles incoming requests before they reach a listener. The Web Application Firewall checks each request for many common threats based on the Open Web Application Security Project, or OWASP. Which services below are features of Azure Application Gateway? We need to select 3 answers. This is definitely not authentication. The correct answer is Layer 7 load balancing, offloading of CPU-intensive SSL terminations, round-robin distribution for incoming traffic. Azure Application Gateway is a dedicated virtual offering, offers Layer 7 load balancing capabilities for your application. It lets customers to optimize web farm productivity by offloading CPU-intensive SSL termination to the application gateway, round-robin distribution of incoming traffic, and cookie-based session affinity, URL path-based routing, and the ability to host multiple websites behind a single application gateway. Let's look at question number 7. You are configuring a network security group. All the following default rules except which one is right. So we have 3 right answers and 1 wrong answer. So the wrong answer here is, but which is the correct answer for the question, is allow internet inbound. NSGs have default inbound and outbound rules. There is a default allow internet outbound rule, but not an allow internet inbound rule. Let's look at question number 8. Your organization has web servers in different regions and you want to optimize the availability of the servers. Which of the following is best suited for this purpose? The correct answer is Azure Front Door. Azure Front Door lets you define, manage, and monitor the global routing for your web traffic by optimizing for best performance and instant global failover for high availability. Let's look at question number 9. Your organization has a security policy that prohibits exposing SSH ports to the outside world. You need to connect to an Azure Linux virtual machine to install software. What should you do? The correct answer is configure the Bastion service. The Azure Bastion service provides secure and seamless RDP and SSH connectivity to your virtual machines directly in the Azure portal over SSL. When you connect via Azure Bastion, your virtual machines do not need a public IP address. Let's look at question number 10. What type of disk encryption is used for Linux disk? The correct answer is de-encrypt. Azure Disk Encryption is a capability that lets you encrypt your Windows and Linux IaaS VMs disk. Azure Disk Encryption leverages the industry standard BitLocker feature of Windows and de-encrypt feature of Linux to provide OS and data disk encryption to help protect and safeguard your data. Let's look at question number 11. You need to ensure your virtual machines are kept up to date with security patches. Update management, including all of the following except which one? So the correct answer is update management only pertains to cloud deployed virtual machines. Update management pertains to virtual machines in on-premises environment and in other cloud environments as well. Question number 12. Which of the following is not a high severity security center recommendation for virtual machines and servers? You need to select one answer. The right answer is install endpoint protection solution on virtual machines. This is a medium severity recommendation. Privileged access workstations provide all the following except one. Protection against attackers who have gained administrative access. Privileged access workstation cannot protect against an attacker that has already gained access. Question number 14. To interact with Azure APIs, an Azure Kubernetes Service AKS cluster require which of the following? You need to select two answers. The correct answers are Azure AD Service Principal and Managed Identity. To interact with Azure APIs, an Azure AKS cluster requires either an Azure AD Service Principal, or a Managed Identity. A service principal or managed identity is needed to dynamically create and manage other Azure resources such as Azure Load Balancer or Azure Container Registry. Let's look at question number 15. You are using Azure Kubernetes Service or AKS and needed to control the flow of traffic between pods and block traffic directly to the backend application. What should you do? Select one. The correct answer is create a AKS network policy. The principle of least privilege should be applied to how traffic can flow between pods in an Azure Kubernetes Service cluster. The network policy feature in Kubernetes lets you define rules for ingress and egress traffic between pods in a cluster. Let's look at the last question. You are defining RBAC rules for the Azure Kubernetes security team. You need to grant permission across the entire cluster. Which two items would you define? You need to select two answers. So the right answer is cluster roles and cluster role bindings. Roles are used to grant permissions within a namespace. If you need to grant permissions across the entire cluster or to cluster resources outside a given namespace, you can instead use cluster role. Once the roles are defined to grant permission to resources, you assign these Kubernetes RBAC permission and with a role binding. Role bindings are used to assign roles for a given namespace. If you need to bind roles across the entire cluster or to cluster resources outside a given namespace, you can instead use cluster role bindings. In this section, we are going to go through Module 3 review questions. This module is securing data and applications. So let's look at the first question. Which one of the following should not be stored in Azure Key Vault? What are the differences between these items? Select one. It's definitely not key management, secret management, and certificate management. The correct answer is identity management. Azure Key Vault can be used for keys, secrets, and certificates. Keys are cryptographic objects. The Key Vault supports multiple key types and algorithms and enables the use of hardware security modules, or it is known as HSM, for high-value keys. Secrets provide secure storage for passwords and database connection strings. Certificates are built on top of keys and secrets and add an automated renewal feature. Let's look at question number 2. A select group of users must be able to create and delete keys in Key Vault. How should you grant these permission? The correct answer is role-based access control. To create and delete key vaults, the management pane uses RBAC, which is role-based access control. For example, you could use a role called Key Vault Contributor. Let's look at the third question. Which of these statements best describes Azure Key Vault's authentication and authorization process? You need to select one. The correct answer is applications and users authenticate to a vault with their Azure Active Directory identities and are authorized to perform actions on all secrets in the vault. Authentication to Key Vault uses Azure Active Directory identities. Access policies are used to provide authorization for actions that apply to every secret in the vault. Let's look at question number 4. How does Azure Key Vault help protect your secrets after they have been loaded by your app? Select one. The correct answer is it doesn't protect your secrets. Secrets are unprotected once they are loaded by your application. Once secrets have been loaded by an app, they are unprotected. Make sure to not log them, store them, or return them in client responses. Let's look at question number 5. Your manager wants to know more about software protected keys and hardware protected keys. You discuss which three of the following statements. Select three. So the correct answer is software protected cryptographic operations are performed in software. Hardware protected cryptographic operations are performed within the HSM, and only the hardware protected keys offer FIPS 140-2 level 2 assurance. The primary difference besides price with the software protected key is when cryptographic operations are performed. They are done in the software using Azure Compute Services, while the HSM protected keys, the cryptographic operations are performed within the HSM. Let's look at question number 6. What method does Microsoft Azure App Service use to obtain credentials for user attempting to access an app? Select 1. The correct answer is redirection to a provider endpoint. Microsoft Azure App Service apps redirect requests to an endpoint that signs in users for that provider. The app service can automatically direct all unauthenticated users to the endpoint that signs in users. Question number 7. What type of managed service identities can you create? Select 2. The correct answers are system assigned and user assigned. There are two types of managed identities. A system assigned managed identity is enabled directly on an Azure server instance. When the identity is enabled, Azure creates an identity for the instance in the Azure AD tenant that's trusted by the subscription of the instance. Creating an app with a user assigned identity requires that you create the identity and then add its resource identifier to your app configuration. Let's look at question number 8. Your app service application stores page graphics in an Azure storage account. The app needs to authenticate programmatically to the storage account. What should you do? Select one answer. The correct answer is create a managed identity. A managed identity is an Azure AD security principle that represents the resource app, which is managed identities can be user or system managed. Let's look at question number 9. How does using managed identities for Azure resources change the way an app authenticates to Azure Key Vault? Select one. The correct answer is the app gets token from a token service instead of Azure Active Directory. When you enable managed identity on your web app, Azure activates a separate token granting REST service specifically for use by your app. Your app will request tokens from this service instead of Azure Active Directory. Let's look at question number 10. You need to provide a contingent staff employee temporary read-only access to the contents of an Azure storage account container named media. It is important that you grant access while adhering to the security principle of least privilege. What should you do? And you just need to select one answer. The correct answer is generate a shared access signature token for the container. The SaaS or shared access signature can provide a read-only access. Let's look at question number 11. Your company has both a development and production environment. The development environment needs time-limited access to storage. The production environment needs unrestricted access to storage resources. You need to configure storage access to meet the requirements. What should you do? Each answer presents part of the solution. Select two. The first answer is use shared access signature for the development app. The second answer is use access keys for the production apps. Shared access signature provide a way to provide more granular storage access than access keys. For example, you can limit access to read-only and you can limit the services and types of resources. Shared access signatures can be configured for the specific amount of time, which meets this scenario's requirements. Access keys provide unrestricted access to the storage resources, which is the requirement for the production app in this scenario. Let's look at question number 12. Your company is being audited. It is not known how long the audit will take, but during that time, files must not change or removed. It is okay to read or create new files. What should you do? Select two. Each correct answer is required for the solution. The first correct answer is add legal hold retention policy to the blob container. The second option is identify a tag for the items that are being protected. If the retention interval is not known, users can set legal holds to store immutable data until the legal hold is cleared. When a legal hold policy is set, blobs can be created and read, but not modified or deleted. Each legal hold is associated with a user-defined alphanumeric tag such as case ID, event name, etc. that is used as an identifier string. Let's look at question number 13. You are configuring an Azure file share for the business group. Which of the following is not true? Select one. The correct answer is Azure files can use RBAC for share level or directory file permissions. Only share level permission can use RBAC. Let's look at question number 14. You are configuring secure transfer required. Your compliance office want to know more about this feature. You provide all the following information except which one? The correct answer is request to storage can be HTTPS or HTTP. When secure transfer required is enabled, all requests must be HTTPS. Let's look at question number 15. Your SQL database administrator has recently read about SQL injection attacks. They ask you what can be done to minimize the risk of this type of attack. You suggest implementing which of the following features? The correct answer is Advanced Threat Protection. Advanced Threat Protection is an advanced data security feature for databases. The feature provides alerts when a potential attack like SQL injection occurs. Question number 16. Your organization provides a help desk for its customers. Service representatives need to identify callers using the last four numbers of their credit card. You need to ensure the complete credit card number is not fully exposed to the service representatives. Which of the following feature do you implement? The correct answer is dynamic data masking. Dynamic data masking limits sensitive data exposure by masking it to non-privileged users. This feature enables customers to designate how much of the sensitive data is to reveal. Let's look at question number 17. Your organization auditors need to be assured that sensitive database data always remains encrypted at rest, in transit, and in use. You assure the auditors this is being done because you have configured which feature. The feature you're looking for is called Always Encrypted. Always Encrypted helps protect sensitive data at rest on the server during movement between client and server and while the data is in use. Always Encrypted ensures that sensitive data never appears as plain text inside the database system. After you configure data encryption, only client applications or app servers that have access to the keys can access plain text data. Let's look at question number 18. You have an app service web application uses a SQL database. Users need to authenticate to the database with their Azure AD credentials. You perform all the following tasks except which one? The correct answer is create user in the master DB. You could not create users in the master DB. Instead, contained user should be created on each database. Let's look at the last question. What type of firewall rule can you configure for the Azure SQL database? Select two. The first answer is server level firewall rule and the second answer is database level firewall rules. Server level IP firewall rule enables client to access your entire Azure SQL database, that is, all the database within the same SQL database server. These rules are stored in the master database. Database level IP firewall rules enable clients to access certain secure databases within the same SQL database server. You can create these rules for each database, including the master database, and they are stored in the individual databases. This is the final module, which is module 4. We are going to go through review questions on manage security operations. Let's look at the first question. Data collected by Azure Monitor fits into which two fundamental types? What are differences in those types of data? Select two. The correct answers are logs and metrics. All data collected by Azure Monitor fits into one of two fundamental types, metrics and logs. Metrics are numerical values that describe some aspect of a system at a point in time. They are lightweight and capable of supporting near real-time scenarios. Logs contain different kinds of data organized into records with different sets of properties for each type. Telemetry such as events and traces are stored as logs in addition to performance data so that it can all be combined for analysis. Let's look at question number 2. You can query Log Analytics Workspace with which of the following? The correct answer is Kusto query language. All data is retrieved from Log Analytics Workspace using a log query written using Kusto query language or KQL. You can write your own queries or use solutions and insight that include log queries for an application or service. Let's look at the third question. You want to be notified when any virtual machine in the production resource group is deleted. What should you configure? Select one. The correct answer is Activity Log Alert. An activity log alert to receive notification when specific changes occurs to resources in your Azure subscription. Let's look at question number 4. The IT managers would like to use a visualization tool for the Azure Monitor results. You suggest all the following except what? Logic apps. Logic apps would be used for integration activities. Workbooks are interactive documents that provide deep insight into your data, investigation, and collaboration inside the team. Specific examples where workbooks are useful are troubleshooting guides and incident postmortem. Dashboards and Power BI allow you to quickly identify important issues as well. Let's look at question number 5. Which of the following is not included in Azure Security Center free tier? Select one. The correct answer is Monitor non-Azure resources. Security Center free tier doesn't support monitor external cloud or non-Azure resources. Question number 6. Your organization compliance group requires client authentication, use Azure AD, and key vault diagnostic logs to be enabled. What is the easiest way to accomplish this? Select one. The correct answer is Implement Security Center policies. Security Center can monitor policy compliance across all your subscriptions using a default set of security policies. A security policy defines the set of controls that are recommended for resources within the specified subscription or resource group. Let's look at question number 7. Your Azure Security Center dashboard presents a secure score. How would you describe that score? Select one. The correct answer is the secure score is a calculation based on the ratio of healthy resources versus total resources. Security Center reviews your security recommendations across all workloads, user algorithms to determine how critical each recommendation is, and calculates a secure score which is displayed on the overview page. Let's look at question number 8. Your organization is working with an outside agency that need to access a virtual machine. There is a real concern about brute force login attacks targeted at virtual machine management ports. Which of the following can be used to open the management ports for a defined time range? Select one. The correct answer is just-in-time virtual machine access. Azure Security Center supports just-in-time virtual machine access. When just-in-time access is enabled, Security Center uses network security group rules to restrict access to management port when they are not in use, so they cannot be targeted by attackers. Let's look at question number 9. You are using Azure Security Center to provide visibility into your virtual machine security settings. With Azure Security Center monitoring, you can be notified of all the following except what? Select one. The correct answer is a newer operating system version is available. Azure Security Center examines OS level settings using a monitor service that it installs into each Windows and Linux VM. Azure Security Center can provide a vulnerability assessment with remediation recommendations. Let's look at question number 10. Where can you create and manage custom security alert? The correct answer is Azure Sentinel. Microsoft recommends that you enable Azure Sentinel and recreate your custom alert rule there. Question number 11. You're explaining what an Azure Sentinel playbook is and how it can be used. You cover all the following except which one. The correct answer is A Sentinel playbook is created to handle several subscriptions at once. All of the other statements are true. Let's look at question number 12. You are using Sentinel to investigate an incident. When you view the incident detail information, you see all of the following except which one? The correct answer is incident owner. The incident detail information include the severity, summary of the number of entities involved, the raw event that triggered the incident, and the incident's unique ID. Let's look at question number 13. You are an investigator who wants to be proactive about looking for security threats. You have read about Sentinel's hunting capabilities and notebooks. What is an Azure Sentinel notebook? Select one. The correct answer is notebook is a step-by-step playbook where you can walk through to the steps of an investigation and hunt. Other hunting techniques are described in the other choices, which is built-in query, bookmarks, and event tables. Let's look at the last question. You are creating roles within your security operations team to grant appropriate access to Azure Sentinel. All of the following are built-in Azure Sentinel roles, except which one? The correct answer is Azure Sentinel Owner. The Azure Sentinel's built-in roles are Reader, Responder, and Contributor. So that concludes AZ-500 tutorial. I will see you on a next video. Till then, take care.